Somehow, it just keeps getting worse and worse for Blizzard, and it's amazing. Nobody even understands how that's possible at this point. In some situations, Blizzard doesn't even do anything, and it still somehow ends up worse. It's amazing. I told you, by the way, didn't I tell you, the moment Bobby Kotick steps out the door, Blizzard is gonna just self-implode and collapse instantaneously? Microsoft is going to be begging on their knees for Bobby to come back and save this sinking ship.
What is going on with Blizzard? Recently, Microsoft announced they were letting go of 1,900 employees in their games division, which as of last year now includes...
I hope that includes every single person who is working on Diablo 4.
Members of Activision Blizzard. In fact, according to reports, it seems like quite a large number of Blizzard employees were affected here. The Overwatch development team got hit hard, losing numerous producers, designers, animators, VFX, and 3D.
Who cares about them? They're all garbage, they're all sad, they're all unlikable, and they ruin the game.
Artist. According to one ex-employee, a good half of the entire environmental art team was let go, and the game's lead narrative designer was also let go because...
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. Why do they even have a... What did they call this again? Surroundings design? Why do they even have that? All of Overwatch's maps look beyond generic. There is nothing unique about a single Overwatch map. It is the most generic things possible. And some of them, you know, blatantly look like they're out of Team Fortress 2, I'm not gonna lie. It's just horrible. Why do they even have people who work doing that? An Egypt team map? Wow! That's crazy! Who has ever heard of this thing called Egypt? Whoa, a pyramid? Wow, how... Impossible, wow.
Because I suppose, who needs narrative design once you've canceled the entire PvE portion of your game?
True. But then, I'm gonna defend them actually on this, okay? It's not exactly easy creating a PvP thing where you're supposed to explore characters in depth when Overwatch is literally... Overwatch is, without a joke, literally just a bunch of stereotypes about a bunch of people. You have Reinhardt, who's German. The only way you can tell that he's German is because he has an accent. You have Lucio. Yeah, imagine writing an interesting narrative about Lucio. He's a guy who really likes music. Yeah, that's a super poet. He really... Yeah, that's a disaster. Diva. Oh, look at that. It's a gamer girl. Wow. What are they going to explore? Her struggles of keeping her clothes on? Is that it? Is that what we're going to be exploring? Tracer has literally no personality. It all got put into her ass and then the ass got removed. How do you make stories about these one-dimensional paper thin characters? Overwatch has no character story to speak of whatsoever. It's just sad and bad.
We've also heard much of the Overwatch esports team was fired, including well-known casters and commentators like Zoe Geschwind and Matt Morello. Beyond those public faces, we've heard members of the production and operation teams were cut, otherwise known as the behind-the-scenes backbone of Overwatch esports, the people running the show. And how's that show been doing? Well, although peak viewer counts for the Overwatch League did bounce back in 2022 and 23, specifically during playoffs and the finals, unfortunately, it seemed the average view counts throughout the year for Overwatch esports have been continuously dropping since the league's inception. And unsurprisingly, the level of interest...
Yeah, it's just boring. Overwatch 2 is just boring. Blizzard completely destroyed the game by not balancing it, and then by balancing it. There's just no winning with Blizzard in these situations. They have not balanced a single game properly for 20 years. It's true, by the way.
In competitive Overwatch closely mirrors the general interest in the franchise, which has been in a steady decline since its initial release in 2016. The game did get a significant boost with the launch of Overwatch 2 in October 2022, before quickly returning to the pre-sequel launch levels of interest. So Overwatch's popularity has been in steady decline, and as such, the competitive scene has also been dropping. Now, this coupled with the recent Microsoft merger, any subsequent role redundancies, increased hiring during the pandemic, the entire tech industry constricting post-pandemic, which then comes...
Bro, and some people are unironically trying to blame Bobby Kotick for this. That Bobby Kotick was the reason that Overwatch turned bad. Bro, Bobby Kotick does not even play Overwatch, probably. He did not tell you to create a tank meta for 1 year straight, where everyone was miserable playing the game, and the tournament system was absolutely, completely busted because reasons. It's not even close, my dude.
With a reduction in investor spending, and topped off with Microsoft's desire to make the books look better following its acquisition. All of this, and certainly many other things I've not mentioned, have resulted in the large number of layoffs that we're seeing here in the Overwatch team. And as if that news wasn't bad enough, the firings were not exclusive to Overwatch. Warcraft got hit with confirmed losses, including members of its lore, animation, and franchise development teams. And
makes sense, the lore's trash. The franchise dying.
Although I've not yet seen any verified layoffs for the Diablo, Hearthstone, and...
By the way, this is not an actual location in game.
And StarCraft teams, it is certainly possible that jobs were lost there as well. I have just not seen any official reporting or announcements from anyone.
By the way, also not an actual location in game.
Let go on those teams. But the other major part of the story here actually surrounds Blizzard's in-development survival game that was code-named Odyssey. So we first heard about this a couple of years ago when Blizzard revealed the project in 2022, announcing... morbidly comically at this point, announcing that they were hiring people to work on a brand new survival game for PC and consoles. And again, this was in 2022, like a year and a half ago. Now, we later actually learned, though, that Odyssey had been in development since 2017, so a little over 6 years to date, and by many accounts, it was shaping up quite nicely, according to what we heard.
Oh yeah, sure. Shaping up quite nicely. Bro, someone also thought that Shadowlands is gonna be an absolute hit and it's amazing, okay? So, listening Blizzard say, oh, it's really good, it's going really good. Yeah, I don't believe you. I think you're lying. You're 100% lying, in fact.
We knew this thanks to leaked impressions from several playtesters, which were all fairly positive. And then there were the many ex-Blizzard employees after leaving the company in recent years, previously having worked on that project, that spoke quite highly of Blizzard's upcoming game when it was officially announced. So it was according to people who had played it, and according to people who previously worked on it, according to people who were previously at Blizzard but then left the company for whatever reason over the years. They said, yeah, this was a great game. We're really excited about it. I can't wait for the public to get to see it. Well,
again, it's not like Blizzard can tell if a game is good or not. So I don't believe that even one bit.
With this round of layoffs that just took place, the survival game has been officially canceled. All 6 years of development thrown in the trash, with most of the team working on the game having been fired, and those who remain reportedly moving on to other projects. And that right there is basically the currently up-to-date information that we know about the people laid off and the teams that were affected.
I like this. Again, Blizzard has underperformed in everything constantly. Why do you think that I want these people to stay? Why do you think I want these people who have been ruining my Blizzard games for year after year after year are allowed to stay? No, I'm holding the door for them as they leave and smiling and telling them to not even look back and never even try to get back in there. Okay? This is good. All of these people getting fired is good.
Here. Now, when announcing these layoffs, both Phil Spencer and Matt Booty, in separate announcements, separate basically disclosures of it, and talking about their feelings about it and why they're doing it, they both more or less stated that the intended goal with the cuts that they made and moving forward was going to be a focus on Blizzard's strengths and its existing franchises. Clearly, they don't consider Overwatch League successful, and the dwindling numbers appear to make that evident, and that survival game evidently wasn't shaping up as they had hoped, or if that's not the case, it's certainly what they're considering at this point too
not a real location,
big of a risk and not worth continued investment. Now, before I move forward with the rest of this video, let me just say how much the situation sucks. Like, losing your job at any point in time
is amazing. You should lose your job if you're as incompetent as the people working at Blizzard. You 100% deserve to be fired.
Not an enjoyable experience, and certainly losing your financial security and regular paycheck as being part of an industry that currently looks to be tightening its belt, that is especially rough. Now does not seem like the best time to be searching for a new job in the tech industry, where it seems like every other day we're hearing about a new round of layoffs. Certainly things are cyclical, things will bounce back, people will be hiring new people, it all goes in circles, right? But it's certainly, I've got a huge amount of empathy for everyone who was affected here. So my condolences to everyone that was impacted by these layoffs. I hope that you get back on your feet soon, and I hope that your future employer is structured and managed in a way to not fire you every time they want to make the numbers look better for investors. Keeping my fingers crossed here, but evidence in recent years seems like that is going to be a recurring theme. Beyond that, this news also just got me thinking about Blizzard as a whole, the company's output in recent years, the games that they've released, and then my general sentiment towards the studio. Ultimately, I'm just kind of left with a sense of disappointment once again around Blizzard as a developer. It's a feeling that's...
I completely cannot understand these positions. Oh! I completely understand that Blizzard has been making bad thing after bad thing constantly for years upon years now, but it's so sad that all these people who made these decisions got fired. Really? That's good. I think that's good. Because again, people like to blame the CEOs and whatnot. Bro, when Bobby Kotick was the leader of Blizzard, he didn't even know what World of Warcraft probably was. Okay? He did not go to the World of Warcraft devs and say, no, we're making Shadowland and listen, this is what you're gonna do. He had no clue what's even probably happening there, okay? Bobby Kotick did not ruin Blizzard. The people who were working under him ruined him by being incompetent, blabbering fools. And hopefully Microsoft is gonna purge all of them. Purple here? Well, here's the door. Have fun.
It's been looming for some time, growing a little bit stronger every single year, but I've always maintained the hope that maybe, just maybe, things could go back to the good old days. Super naive, I know, trust me, I'm well aware here, very self-conscious about this. But man, I still remember when Blizzard was considered the stamp of quality in PC gaming. After all, they did set the bar for pretty much everything they made. This was the case.
True.
With the Warcraft and StarCraft RTS games, Diablos 1 and 2 for ARPGs, and World of Warcraft for MMOs. If Blizzard made a game in a genre, it was pretty much considered one of the best in that.
I mean, this was all already around the time of fall.
Genre. Obviously, though, accounting for the fact...
yeah, people are gonna say, oh, Mr. Panderi was actually pretty good. Yeah, for those who played it, it was. For those who didn't play it because it's a bunch of stupid pandas and I hate the game now, it wasn't. Surprise, surprise.
Will acknowledge that some people have different tastes and preferences, right? Like, certainly there were people who liked EverQuest and Asheron's Call and Ultima Online more than they liked World of Warcraft, and there are people who liked Command and Conquer and Age of Empires more than StarCraft or the Warcraft RTSs. I understand that, but by and large across the industry, it did seem like many people considered Blizzard one of the top dogs with whatever game they released and whatever genre it was released in. This was at least...
Dude, there was a time where if you got a beta key for any Blizzard game, you could sell it on eBay for probably $1,000. Man, that was a time, boys. That was actually a legit time.
True in my eyes from my perspective as a player. And I would even say this continued to be the case with many of their modern titles. Like, I was obsessed with Overwatch for well over a year. Hearthstone was a blast as well.
Yeah, true. I mean, Hearthstone and Overwatch were the signs of decline, so to speak. Hearthstone was just a cheap way to make money, essentially, and then they made it into a complete clown fiesta. By the way, Magic the Gathering is also doing that, so 10 out of 10. Be Hearthstone now. You know, and Overwatch was good for the time, but again, it just destroyed itself over time. Because the changes needed to be done, and the moment that Blizzard starts doing changes, typically they do worse than before. They just completely ruined it. Blizzard also is really slow at addressing issues. So if Blizzard does something where, you know, something game ruining happens, and it's not a literal 100% bug, Blizzard will just leave that there for, you know, the player base to suffer through and abandon the game because they don't like playing it that much for half a year, easy. and then maybe they will fix it or something. That's how slow they are. Again, Overwatch did not die because it was a bad game. Overwatch died because Blizzard made it into a bad game with the tank meta. You can trace Overwatch 1-for-1 literally dying in Blizzard's failure to fix the tank meta. In fact, it feels like they encouraged the tank meta. And guess what, by the way? They're doing it again. I don't know how strongly again, but they are going to give tanks passive healing and things like that now. Which means, again, chances are it's going to be the tank meta all over again. And so what's left of Overwatch 2 is probably just going to be swept under because of that.
Well, and yes, I would say Overwatch at its release was considered one of the best hero shooters on the market, and Hearthstone without question was one of the best digital card games. It probably still is. It's one of the best feeling to play. As much as I love Magic the Gathering, all of their digital offerings have always been like way behind in terms of their production value, the quality, the feel of the games. And I love Magic, dude. I grew up playing Magic even more so than I did Blizzard games, so that's saying a lot. I mean, heck, I even really liked Heroes of the Storm, although, yeah, being perfectly honest, I would not consider that a best in genre for MOBAs. I still thought it was
True. It just tried to be too easy. It wasn't, like, it's funny because Heroes of the Storm was not bad as a game, but it's really kind of boring. Kind of just boring.
A pretty cool game, and I enjoyed playing it. But anyway, point being that Blizzard for many years was a very reliable developer. You knew you were getting something good with a focus on quality gameplay when you bought one of their games. And I actually do still feel that Blizzard's games do deliver best-in-class gameplay. Whenever I hear someone say Blizzard doesn't make good games anymore, I feel like that statement has to come with like a massive asterisk and a footnote. That's my personal opinion, because when it comes to things like game feel, animation, and sound quality, that stuff is still top-notch, best.
Technically true, but I will disagree with one thing here, because this has been my problem with Blizzard. They overindulge in these stupid animations and whatnot. This has been my problem with World of Warcraft for a very long time when I see how the new things are. Everything is just overtuned. Everything in the environment is just absolutely overtuned. You cannot find a single place in any map where you look in a direction and you don't see 53 different kind of brushes, a tree, a lantern for some reason, a road, a something. Like, there's no such thing as just a normal forest. Everything has some kind of butterflies, lights, trees, whatever in it. It just feels too much. It just feels awkward. It doesn't even feel like a fantasy. It just feels like someone put in 20 things here because they could. It's like, it's the same thing that I talk about Starfield, by the way. When you go into a room, what do you see? What do you see? Well, you see 20 tarps on the ground, 15 containers of no one God knows what. On every single tile in a room on the wall, there's some kind of vent, there's some kind of panel, you cannot find just a basic, normal looking wall anywhere. It doesn't exist in these games. Everything is just filled to the brim with some kind of glitter or effect or something like that. And that just absolutely ruins it for me. Because it doesn't look natural. It looks like... I don't know what it looks like, but it's sad.
In class stuff coming from Blizzard. I can definitely say that Blizzard still makes some of the best feeling and playing games on the market. Overwatch felt and played amazing, so does Diablo 4, same goes for StarCraft 2. Like I just said, Hearthstone is probably still the best feeling digital card game, and World...
True. I actually agree. Feelings wise, yeah. All of these games are good, but yeah, I do think that Blizzard is really good magically at nailing down the feelings of things. I can't stop the thing. They're really good at just magically nailing down the feeling of things, but so what? A good feeling of a thing is not gonna make a thing good. That's just the brutal reality of it. Yeah, it feels good to play World of Warcraft, but that feeling of good is going to be overpowered by probably everything else.
Warcraft is one of the snappiest MMOs, and that's actually, I think, a large part of the reason why it maintains to be one of the popular, besides all the, you know, nostalgia for it and all of that. But yeah, these are some of the best gameplay experiences in each of their respective genres. Blizzard still absolutely nails that, without question. But as has been well documented, there's been a clear change overall over time, and that Blizzard's stamp of quality has steadily carried less weight with it. While I have no doubt that there is a long list of different reasons why, like many different things that you could point to as the causes for Blizzard's decline over the many decades that it's been around, ultimately I think one of the primary factors has been the company-wide motivator for making games. The people working on the games, everyone involved in the development process. Why are they making their games? What is their ultimate goal? What is driving the decisions that are being made in game production? And the fact is, the Blizzard games we get today, as with much of the rest of the AAA industry, they feel a lot more like vehicles for continuous monetization rather than games for game's sake. And I've talked about this in prior videos about the games in general, the AAA industry in general, but I do also feel this is specifically very, very finely showcased in looking at Blizzard's games. The games business has, yes, of course, always been about making money, although it feels like the order of things, the order of operations in game development and selling has been reversed from what it felt like in the past. In the past, I felt like Blizzard cared about making a great game first, and then they would sell us that great game for us to enjoy, whereas today, I feel like when making a new game, the company as a whole, and I want to be very specific here, I'm not talking about individual developers, I'm probably not talking about like the software engineers and the artists and the lore design teams.
He is. Because if those people are individually actually good, talented, in the right, and they're the majority, well, then we don't have this problem. But you see, they are not. They are the absolute minority currently nowadays for Blizzard. And that's the problem.
I'm realizing that these are all lumped into the umbrella of Blizzard, but there are many, many different attitudes in the game development process because there are many different people involved in the game development process. But as a whole, when we look at the final end product, this is the sentiment that I get. In the past, when Blizzard put out a product, it felt like they cared about that product being as good as it could be. Whereas today, when they're making a new game, it feels like the first thing they're thinking about is how are they selling it and then building the game around that. Like, yes, of course, they still have to make a game that is appealing to people, but it's one of those things where I feel like one of the earliest conversations is, okay, we got a concept for a game, great. How many ways can this be broken up and monetized? Can we sell a battle pass? Can we sell cosmetics? What can we put in the cash shop? How much content?
Nah, I don't believe that. Again, making a battle pass and adding some kind of random MacGuffin in there, making all of those microtransaction things, that shouldn't take away from the development time of the actual game, right? Technically. A small thing like that is not going to make your game just horrible instantaneously.
Can we exclude from launch and then sell it a year later in the expansion? I feel like these are like some of the early conversations that are being had when they're talking about making a new game, and maybe that's part of the reason for the cancellation of the survival game. If it wasn't...
You know what made Blizzard games good? Look at that cleavage, okay? You can't get that anymore.
Just outright that they couldn't make a game that they thought was fun and there was high enough quality or whatever their reasoning for canceling it. Maybe part of the reason was, I don't know if we can monetize this thing enough. Other survival games aren't monetized enough compared to some of the other genres that we're involved in. So maybe we focus on the genres that can be monetized more heavily. Although I'm sure if they thought hard enough, they could have came up with plenty of ways to monetize the survival game. I feel like there's a possibility that was part of the conversation when the decision was made to cancel this project. I also think a perfect example is some of what we've seen with Diablo 4. Like, why doesn't a game all about collecting loot have more stash tabs to store said loot? What is the reason for this? Well, they've said it was due to how the game was coded with the shared world and what...
Yeah, because you needed to load everyone's character stash tab friend list and their private number. And that was burning down the servers. What a time to be alive.
If one person opens their stash, everyone has to load that stash, and then if too many stashes are loaded at the same time, the game would explode or something. Maybe that's the case, but maybe we got a limited stash tab because they hope to sell us more of them down the road. After all, they were selling us stash tabs all the way back with Diablo 3. When you bought the expansion, you got new stash tabs with it. I think it'd be naive to say that they've not at least considered that for Diablo 4. And hey, man, somehow somehow Last Epoch, an ARPG from a development studio of under 50 people from what I saw, somehow they managed to let players have as many stash tabs as their heart desires.
Wow.
It's so weird. I don't know how they do it. Also, you know what? Why doesn't Diablo 4 have cooler looking transmog options in the base version of the game?
Because no one cares about the transmog in the first place. Because it's bad.
I think there were like probably 2 sets that I thought looked actually good that I wanted to use on my druid. Well, that might be because they want us to buy the outfits that they have for sale in the cash shop or the one from the battle pass. Speaking of which, yeah, why is there a battle pass in my ARPG? Well, that's of course to provide recurring revenue for the live service portion of the game, mainly its quarterly seasons, which although they've sounded neat and I've shown some interest in them in the past, the fact is they've yet to intrigue me enough personally to revisit the game for more than a couple of days.
Well, to be fair, half of the point of that is to have you come back for like half a day or a couple of days. That's almost the point of some of them. But hey, season 3 is so bad, it's just 20 steps back. Again, fire everyone who's working on Diablo 4. It's not even close at this point. You can't go wrong.
Most of my playtime with Diablo 4 was at and around launch. I've barely touched it in the season updates. It's just not intrigued me that much. Also, why isn't there more endgame content to engage with besides the Nightmare Dungeons and Hell Tides? I know they added a few little things here and there with those seasons, but the general core of the game, why wasn't there more at release? Well, there will be, without question, when it comes time to sell the expansion, and maybe...
No, season 72 is gonna be amazing, trust me. That's when the game kicks in.
Some of that would have made it into the launch version of the game or into one of these seasons.
Have you not heard that Diablo 3 is finally good in season 42? The same's gonna happen with Diablo 4.
Updates that we're technically paying for. Some of us are paying for by buying the season passes. Maybe some of those big endgame things would have made it into these seasonal updates, but this was all being held back for the Vessel of Hatred because, hey, they need to give us enough incentive with enough alluring new things that entice us enough to come to revisit things that I haven't been enticing enough for me to revisit the seasons, the big things, the blockbuster things. They're saving it all to sell it in the expansion. We're getting the new class, we're getting certainly other endgame activities. There's of course the new content areas, new quest lines, all of that stuff. And maybe some of this was ready for launch or would have been here shortly after launch with these seasonal updates, but was not included. Or maybe not, we'll never know for sure, but the way these games are dissected and monetized, it does leave us, I think, with a very reasonable...
To be fair, there is this situation in gaming, as much as I understand it happens a lot. You get a game that comes out and there's already planned and there's an expansion planned already for it. If, you know, when you're making a game, not everyone is constantly working. Typically the artists finish first and then they can start working already on the next expansion. So that's why you have art for the next expansion already in the base game sometimes. Because they already started working for the expansion, you know? They're just doing some small things. That happens.
Uncertainty. We'll just never know, and this possibility is absolutely there. And then we've got things like, you know, Overwatch 1 with its loot boxes that helped popularize. It certainly wasn't the first game to have loot boxes, I think.
Bro, the fact that people playing Overwatch 2 are unironically saying, I wish the loot boxes were back because it's such a better system than what we have currently, is hilarious in my opinion. It is just peak hilarious.
That honor and distinction, in the West at least, probably goes to Counter-Strike, right? But Overwatch 1 with its loot boxes certainly helped boost its popularity and then eventually boost its regulation. Overwatch 2 being a rebranding of that first game with, from what I've heard, by all accounts, arguably much worse monetization, as people in the past could have mostly played for free, and even with loot boxes as crappy as they are, even with the loot boxes, many people were able to eventually collect all of the skins. Nowadays, playing for free, it's pretty much going to be impossible to do that in Overwatch 2. Hearthstone, after all, heck, it's as much as I loved it, it's a digital collectible card game without the benefit of being able to...
Isn't Hearthstone on a technical level dead, by the way? I feel like it is. No one's talking about it. Yeah, there's people still playing it, true, but it just kind of slowly faded away. It faded into a bit of irrelevance. Hearthstone was good. But then I feel that the problem with Hearthstone was, even though I didn't play it that much, is that they made it that every card does like 5 different things. You never run out of cards. You know, outplaying someone kind of becomes hard-ish almost because of the sheer amount of stuff every card can do and things like that. It was a bit sus. So yeah, people got tired of it because it's like 3 billion interactions and whatnot. It got tedious, I guess you could say. Anyway, I think we're done, boys. That was all of Blizzard games, and that was our boy Force. It is what it is, boys. Blizzard, fire everyone. Fire all of them, especially the people at Diablo 4. Like, get rid of them. It's over. Anyway, this was Quizzer Sid saying, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.